Okay, guys and gals, let's do another reading, shall we? In here, for those who aren't aware, there are 11.5 pages of content which informs the reader what to expect, and each page has about 30 subchapters on it, and there is an enormous amount of information and subject matter within this book. I'll just read one page at random, and you get a little bit of an idea what's in here. Okay, so is intuition our portal to communicate with God? When our light is switched on. The esoteric versus the esoteric. Sorry, the exoteric versus the esoteric. Communicating with the supernatural cosmos via our sixth sense. The crucifixion is symbolic of death of the soul stroke the ego. The four horsemen. Here I invert those four concepts and see what manifests. Embracing the emptiness, the process of letting go of ourselves. The fine art of narrowing down our point of focus so we can concentrate on the spiritual facet of existence. Self-love. What is it that we seek? Freedom through our empty minds. What significance are the phantoms of my past to me now? There are very few accurate recordings of memories, so what do we have to lose by forgetting them, letting them go? Energy vampires and attachment, kicking the dog syndrome, vampiric energy forms that drain our life force. Energy vampires, true or false? How to kill, erase, eradicate negative energy thought forms. The psychology of mind, the power of understanding how our minds work. Clearing the ground upon which to build our mansion. The very narrow path. Heaven's gate. The fall of man in the Garden of Eden. The creation of Homo sapiens. The current manipulated version of the Bible is a highly contentious and malevolent compilation of lies and contrivances designed to imprison the human mind and spirit. Ooh, that one will get some people agitated. The Garden of Eden allegory. Was Moses on drugs when he saw the legendary burning bush? The biblical tabernacles were for secret entheogen use by the elite priests. My very own fantastical experience while smoking cannabis. What can we make of these individuated conscious experiences? And let me just read one more page, now you're in the mood. Self-hypnosis, creating our reality via our thoughts and intentions. To judge or not to judge, that is the question. The Akashic records are said to be. Here I list several well-discussed points of possible contention and explanation concerning what Jesus said and was misunderstood as saying. How my epiphany on judgment came about. There are two sides to every coin. It all simmers down to perspective at the end of the day. Being judgmental, premised on our delusions of separateness. How do we break free from our self-imposed tyranny and create heaven within? Letting go of things that we know do not serve us. Attacking gremlin energy forms via our production of dark energy. Attracting gremlin energy forms via our production of dark energy. My duel with the devil himself. A battle of love over fear. Good over evil. Light over darkness. That was a good one. The slaying of the beast. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. Is the world, universe, cosmos perfect? The miracle of waking up. Humanity must be profoundly disappointing to the cosmic creator. Ooh, why is that then? Is God an amateur at the creation game? Depends which God you're referring to. The DMT God told me that the world is perfect. Is God a chemical produced in our brains? Putting the pieces together. So, is the world perfect, or is it just a perspective that some of us more fortunate and adventurous people have? Heaven and hell are simply states of mind. What we put into our minds is what we can expect to get out. Left brain hell, right brain heaven. The divine peace of God vacates our minds and hearts when we invite in destructive, negative energy forms. When the carnal essence metaphorically dies and only the spiritual remains. From caterpillar to butterfly, the spiritual metamorphosis being here now. So, 2 out of 11, an enormous amount of subject matter. Here I'm going to be speaking about vampiric energy forms that drain our life force. Just to get away from the whole Christian thing for a while, yeah? But don't worry, I'll be back on that subject. You see, this book, Closer to God. What God? Whose God? Well, who's your God? What's your God? Have you ever contemplated God? What do you feel about a God? Do you know God? Or do you have faith in God? Faith in God means you don't know God, doesn't it? How many people have faith? I've never had faith. I couldn't find faith. Didn't know what it was. I had to investigate it long and hard and deep. For 6 solid months I investigated faith. And then, in the end, finally concluded that it's pure self-delusion. And anybody who has faith in the Lord doesn't know God. If you know God, you don't need faith. Makes sense, doesn't it? Anyway, during these intermediary years of my spiritual development, I spent a lot of time analysing the nature of the ego. I began to speculate upon a theory which over the years I have become convinced is a reality. For the time being, I will speak how I used to think as a younger person when grappling with this phenomenon, so that you can follow my psychoanalytical process and see how I derived at my present conclusion. Whilst I was in the midst of my dark night of the soul, I struggled a great deal with feeling negatively charged and wondered what could be causing my long-term state of depleted energy, which lasted for 7 years. That is an awful long time to live with a markedly subdued and weakened life force. I ate well, slept soundly, exercised adequately, and got out in nature daily, yet my energy was constantly low. Naturally, at the time I attributed this to my depression, but intuitively I felt that there was more to it than that. So I seriously began to contemplate the idea that when we feel spiritually low, we could leave our etheric bodies open to negative energy attachments, which enter our energy field to feed on or dwell within that low frequency life force. When this happens to us, our positive vital energy seems to get siphoned off, or at the very least, it is prevented from replenishing itself through its natural course. As a consequence, our natural defense system is almost non-existent. It offers no protection from the energy-depleting forces which seem to be feeding on us somehow or attacking our spiritually weak, defenseless bodies. How many of you can relate to that? I imagined these invisible dark energy beings to resemble some sort of shadow beings in the shape of a gremlin-type creature, which cling to our backs and feed on our spiritual etheric energy. In my case, I reckon these energy vampires came about when my mind became utterly exhausted due to the many years of intense stress that I had suffered over the preceding period. During that time, my homeostasis was out of sync, and my electrical circuitry seemed to have been fried. I was at that time spiritually bereft, and as a result I withered like a dry, dead leaf, and stayed that way until I began to emerge from that very subdued and debilitating dark realm some 7 long years after. I eventually rose out of that stupor due to my mental nurturing and what seemed like a natural convalescing cycle. 7 is a significant number in many realms and most certainly has significance in spiritual terms. Here are 2 excerpts from Google on what the number 7 means in spiritual realms. Number 7 is connected to intuition, wisdom, growing, self-awareness, spiritual revelations, and significant shifts that can positively impact your life. It is the number that serves as a bridge or connection between our mortal realm and our higher selves. In the metaphysical philosophy of numerology, the number 7 signifies the Greek deity Athena and the Roman deity Minerva, both goddesses of war and the city protectress. People affiliated with the number 7 are believed to be insightful, intuitive, truthful, introspective, intelligent and wise. So 7's powerful, we all know that, don't we? We also know that number 9 is extremely powerful. I speak about number 9 at another stage in the book. Those evaluations certainly rang true for me, having been associated with the magical number throughout those years. After coming out of that long convalescing period, I felt much more energized and back to my regular vital self. In addition, I have now mysteriously acquired a finely tuned awareness of spiritual energy fields. I became adept at recognizing in an instant when I had invited in or allowed one of these vampiric parasites to feed on my life force. I say invited because when we know how these vampires manifest, we should know better than to create a negative vibration within our bodies, which then sends out a transmission, an invitation to negative energy feeders or producers. These entities are all around us wherever we go, invariably wherever human beings are. Our only sanctuary would be to head for the woods or the hills. Wherever humans are, you have to know that potentially the gremlins are also, because negative or depleted human energy is what they feed upon or thrive within. I'm not speaking metaphorically here, folks. I'm telling you what I know to be just as real as anything else. And just because we cannot see their vampiric monster-type forms, we can certainly see them at work in people everywhere we go. Whenever we interact with people, we can see the effects of those invisible gremlins jumping from person to person as we pass our negative energy on to people. And how prolific is this in cities? At this stage, I think it is imperative to attempt to clarify precisely what these negative energy forms do to us. It is challenging to determine what exactly happens when we are spiritually low, but something happens for sure. During my investigation into the phenomenon, I have witnessed for myself that when I was spiritually bereft, that's to say, during my dark night of the soul, I certainly lacked vital life force for several years, even though I was doing all of the right things concerning the carnal flesh body, i.e. eating, sleeping, exercising, etc. But that wasn't enough. I still couldn't generate my normal vitality and feel whole again. There was something else going on. Something was still missing. When we hear and read things like vampiric energy forms feeding on us, I ask, what are they feeding on? Are they feeding on a positive life force or an opposing life force? At the end of the day, the so-called positive and negative energy forces are metaphors, because energy is simply energy. We can use our energy for positive or negative actions. So the activities are positive or negative and not the energy itself. And so, how do these spirit energy forms feed on it? One would think that if we are brimming with positive life force, we would attract a whole bunch of these negative attachments who come to feed on this positive energy. But we don't. We only attract those negative attachments when we ourselves are emanating similar low energy. When we are vital and positively charged, we are of no interest to negative energy forms because there is no mileage for them to have a relationship with us. So we can see that we can feasibly rule out any negative attachments feeding on us or residing within us when we are in optimum physical and mental health. I'm sure we can all vouch for this. And so it would appear that it isn't our positive life force that they are attracted to or find stimulating in some way, nor is it nourishing to them. So we can rule out the hypothesis that negative energy forms feed on positive life force. I think it would be readily accepted that like attracts like. So let us look at the opposing theory. Our harmful emissions attract negative energy forms. We are all aware that when we are feeling low, we can tend very quickly to slump even lower, and the lower we sink, the more likely it is that we will engage in hostile and self-destructive activities, i.e. self-harm and abuse through certain vices. When we engage in physical and mentally harmful substances or activities, we all know that we are proverbially inviting the devil for dinner. So the question I have now is, do these negative energy forms come to feed on our self-generated negative energy? Or are they attracted to us simply because our vibration is compatible with theirs? Is there in fact any feeding going on at all? Or is that terminology just a metaphor? This is the $64 billion question. Do those energy vampires feed on our energy or not? It would certainly feel like they do, because we very quickly tend to fall lower and lower when our mind has been seemingly resigned its power to destructive thoughts. Our energy certainly feels very low and isn't likely to raise of its own accord when all of the activities we engage in are by their very nature energy draining, i.e. smoking, drinking, drug taking, poor diet, lack of exercise, broken and poor sleeping patterns. All of the above will act as energy vampires. Let us take a straightforward analogy, that of drinking spirits. When we drink spirits, we are consuming actual invisible negative energy forms, which will do nothing except destroy our minds and bodies. Whether people consider liquid spirits symbolic or not, we certainly can see the manifestation of destructive energies when we consume them. Alcoholic beverages, which we call spirits, are called spirits for a very good reason. Let us not discount that in a hurry. Do our self-created depressed energies destroy us in and of themselves, or are there really vampiric attachments that enter into our energy fields and promote destruction? I will examine these questions individually to see if I can clarify this potentially perceived woo of spiritualism. So we're getting into the nitty-gritty of how we feel low and depressed and angry and negative, all those negative connotations pertaining to the human being. Do we feel low and depleted because of our thoughts, or is it actually due to negative vampiric spirits entering our bodies and feeding on us, or having a whale of a time reveling in those energies. We know ourselves whenever we encounter somebody who has dark energy. There is like a dark cloud all around them, isn't there? And you can feel the potential for the contamination. Nobody wants to be around them. They carry a spirit, a negatively charged spirit, which can jump onto you. When we are spiritually barren, that's to say, when we have hit an all-time low regarding our energy production and general zest for life, we are experiencing a significantly suppressed life force. Still, when this lowness cannot be attributed to our depleted physical levels of energy because we are doing all the right things to keep our energy at an optimal level, what is it then that makes us feel drained and depleted? How many people want to answer to that question? There doesn't seem to be any apparent reason why we're drained of energy. And synchronistically, one of the viewers states the very deep importance of diet and healthy living, of course, to fend off these negative energies. Put ourselves in the best possible arena of protecting ourselves against these. As far as thought forms being actual invisible energy forms are considered, doubtless in many people's mind the jury is still out. But the more we investigate this phenomenon, the more we must be open-minded to the craziness of such a hypothesis. Suppose we do lend ourselves to believing in spirits such as God, Satan, angels and demons, etc. In that case, it's only a tiny extension of those beliefs that will place us within the realms of occultism in general, where anything goes. Personally, due to the supernatural journey that I have travelled, I am comfortably in allegiance with the so-called craziest of occultist or supernaturalist ideas, because I have seen and felt spirits and know them to be confirmed. The maxim that thoughts are things speaks for itself. Thoughts manifest into things throughout every minute of our lives. For example, if we imagine that we will enter into an argument with someone in our vicinity, then if that actually happens, the chances are our thoughts manifest it. We would pursue this line of inquiry. We could pursue this line of inquiry for many chapters, which I would love to do, but again, that is another book in its own right. As for the rest of this chapter, I will assume that thought forms are in fact things and manifest into something tangible, but be they invisible or corporeal. A couple more pages, if you guys haven't fallen asleep yet. We have all witnessed people's moods shifting instantly whenever they become agitated and begin to act out their negative thoughts. And we can see how words can shift a person's energy field just by saying the wrong thing to them. Without any warning, their thoughts manifest into negative responses. And when this happens, we have to know that there is a significant energy shift from positive to negative actions. As a result, the atmosphere changes and everyone's demeanour switches into another vibration, and bad things can happen. How else do we account for these energy shifts? Energy has to come from somewhere, and it only takes a few milliseconds to materialise into actions from thoughts, which are the catalyst for the shift. Could it be that thoughts themselves are actually entities? Many people throughout history have speculated that thought forms are manifestations of both evil and life-giving entities that have their own energy fields. If someone thinks negative thoughts all the time, then we can almost see a cloud of dark energy hanging around these people, and it is often said that you could cut the air with a knife around them. The obverse is also true. Joyous, loving thoughts can move mountains and inspire people to achieve great things. Who doesn't enjoy the energy fields of a charismatic person? In my YouTube videos, I used to speak about how I recognized these attachments clutching onto me when I had been behaving obnoxiously or demeaning my viewers for what I considered was a failing of theirs. This I did after receiving some negative comments, so I kicked the dog. In many of my early videos I was kicking the dog because I allowed people's negative opinions, negative energy thought forms to enter my mind and body and cause me to act accordingly. These days I am much wiser, and that invariably doesn't happen so often, but occasionally when it does, it doesn't happen unconsciously without my awareness of what precisely is making manifest. In these instances, I have decided to engage with negative entities because it can often be stimulating to myself and others. Who doesn't love a bit of controversy? So when we receive negative energy thoughts or projections, we have a choice when we are awoken. When we realise what's going on with us, we have a choice whether we want to engage with them or not. And on occasion I do, for the exploration and the adventure of it. But most times these days I don't. Because it just doesn't ever go anywhere. You know, when you've got someone that is aggressive and you try to bring them around, they think they're winning more, and then they get bigger and bigger, and I offer them to come and talk. It doesn't go anywhere because they're only talking from under their stones because they are not real people. Trolls, as we call them, don't we? Okay, these gremlins seem to know no boundaries. They are spirit energy forms and can travel anywhere around the world to the food source in an instant. It could also be that these vampires simply enter our dimension from parallel dimensions through a wormhole. The internet is a fertile feeding ground for vampires because we can certainly receive these entities by listening to electronic interpretations of human voices and energies. The crazy thing about these energy forms is that they do not have to originate from a real life human. They can penetrate our weak defences via electronic reproductions of what we think to be authentic humans, i.e. videos. This is why AI is potentially so dangerous. There doesn't have to be a physical human present. Simply the intention within an audio transmission, a hostile intent uploaded to the computer to cause distress, is all that is required. It only necessitates a recipient viewer to interpret something as unfavourable, which will manifest a negative energy field, gremlin or vampire. These energy disruptors can manifest instantaneously whenever their food source is. That's to say, wherever there is a human being that doesn't have adequate protection against this variety of energy predators. I will speak more about how we protect ourselves shortly. The food source for these vampires is the human mind, generating negative thoughts. When we are aware of how this vampiric process works and what is happening to us psychologically, we become extremely sensitive to how our bodies feel. We will know immediately when we have a vampiric attachment. When this takes place, we have one or two options. Either we choose to engage with that negative energy field, which for some reason often feels very attractive for us to do so, and we run with it. Or, as a wise alternative, we expel that energy corruptor as soon as it comes upon us. We can do this by instantly changing our negative energy thought processing into positive thought creation, which severs the food source and stops feeding our unwanted visitors. Most people, however, will engage with these energy enhancers due to their ignorance of these matters, which is why there is so much negative energy around. We have to become spiritually aware, otherwise people won't recognize that these vampires are an actual thing. Let me try to expand some more. in an endeavour to shed light on what is complete darkness for most people. And so then I go on to explain a good deal more for pages and pages. How to kill, erase, eradicate negative energy forms. The psychology of mind, the power of understanding how our own minds work. So there is subchapter after subchapter after subchapter on all these sorts of things. So this book isn't about Jehovah. It isn't about the Abrahamic God. It's about the Spinoza God. It's about the cosmic creator. There are 4,200 religions out there in the world, apparently. The God I'm speaking about doesn't pertain to any of those. The God I'm speaking about is us. It's spirit. It's consciousness. And we all have spirit. And we all have consciousness. So why should we have a division in our God? We can't find no Jesus or no Jehovah or no Allah. We can't find any of those 4,200 gods. Where are they? But we can find our own spirit if we look for it hard enough. And certainly we can find our own consciousness. And if we work towards self-discovery, then we will enter into the realm of pure awareness, which is where all things manifest from. So, what is God? If God's fundamental, it has to be awareness. Because everything is manifest from awareness. We can't go beyond awareness. We've got no idea, no conception or perception of anything outside of our awareness. How could we have? We can only imagine that which is within our awareness. And so God has to be there, doesn't it? Makes sense. And so I rationalise all this stuff throughout all these chapters. And if anybody of you is open-minded enough, then you might want to engage in it. As an aside, for those of you who have bought the book, thank you very much. I'm hoping you're enjoying it. 35 of you so far, which is quite a number, because it's very difficult to get anybody to buy a book. As all publishers know, all authors, it's immensely difficult to get any real sales on a book. But those of you that have purchased it, I would value a great deal if you could put a review down on Amazon. And of course, unless you are an embittered Christian, then you will only have great words and things to say about the content of this, because this book will move you on so many levels. But you see, if you are indoctrinated and you consider through your naivety, and you'll receive propaganda that this dimension is only in one very, very, very narrow way, and that's the only way, and it's through Jesus. If you think that, you're not going to enjoy this. So, but if you're open-minded, and sometimes I get so-called Christians telling me that they're open-minded Christians, but their rhetoric doesn't appear to be. So if you are a kind, loving, generous, endearing, non-judgmental, open-minded Christian, you might want to delve a little bit into this and see things from another perspective. You see, because this life is all about perspectives at the end of the day, isn't it? We can't cling on to our biases and the dogma. Where does that lead us? Lead us into cults.